Happy Friday, Miami. This is Buy, Sell, Hold Miami, a real estate podcast. I'm Peter Zalewski, condo consultant, expert witness, founder of the Miami Condo Investing Club. Joined here by my partner, my co-host, the moderator, Daniel Hernandez from Compass Real Estate in Coconut Grove. He does single-family houses as well as condos. Daniel, we need a moment of silence. 15 years later, the Yardbird. This bastion.
Oh, I heard about this.
Southern culture, the first place I ever had chicken and waffles. Buddy of mine.
No kidding.
Shout out
You
to
cultured Peter Zalewski? Didn't have Peter and waffles until he was 25?
A shout out to my friend, real estate broker up in Fort Lauderdale called Barry. Barry, every time he comes to Miami, he's from North Carolina. We go to Yardbird. We always have the southern dishes, the cuisine. They just shut it down. Daniel, it's gone. This place was an institution. Just gone. Didn't even give everybody a heads up.
Whoa.
Is this, is this an outlier? Or is this kind of a trend, a whole resetting of the restaurant scene in South Florida?
For everybody who's just joining us, that's right off of Lincoln Road behind the old movie theater. Did they close the movie theater, by the way? Is that still running?
Yeah, I think they were turning it a museum. I don't know if it was a porn museum or ice cream museum. Maybe it would like
a porn museum would be very apt for the neighborhood, I believe.
OnlyFans could be the sponsor. Porn museum sponsored by, powered by OnlyFans.
Pete, broker it. Well, for everybody just joining us for the first time today, welcome. Episode number 63. We are just into the first week of August. And if you're just joining us for the first time today, it's buy, sell, hold. So Peter and I got these topics we throw back and forth throughout the week. Get to Friday, we got to settle on them. You'll see them if you're watching us on the big screen, the bottom left of your screen. If you're watching us on mobile, it's right there in the middle. And at the end of each topic, 7 to 10 minutes each, we got you for an hour. We're either going to buy because we agree, we're going to sell because we disagree, or we hold because we don't know. And we got a lot to talk about today. We're talking taxes, we're talking insurance, we're talking about islands, barrier islands, and then islands off the barrier islands. And then, of course, we're talking about development because, well, it's a real estate show. Jumping into it, Peter, the Florida Sheriff's Association came out with a statement which confused you as well as it confused me, as I understand it. Florida Sheriff's Association has come out and said that they do not support ballot measure amendment, amendment number 3 on the Florida ballot coming this November. And that refers to the supposed elimination of Florida property taxes down here, or at least that's what DeSantis wanted it to say. It's not going to do that. The proposal is to raise the homestead exemption. So right now it's $50,000, or really 25 plus 25,000, and then they want to raise it to 150, and then eventually in a few years they want to raise it to $250,000. Little problem is that all of our municipalities get their money from property taxes, or at least a large portion of it. In fact, Peter, I pulled the numbers in Miami-Dade. Per the study, and there hasn't been much time to study this, but they did. Per the study, $1.4 billion gap that this is going to leave in Dade, about 1.2 in Broward, and about $1 billion in Palm Beach County. Dade's going to be the biggest in the state, where, big county, a lot of property taxes here. But the Florida Sheriff's Association has come out and said that this would, and I'm going to quote it here, concerned with Constitutional Amendment 3, which potentially allows Tallahassee to control your local budgets, creates longer law enforcement response times, and limits communities' abilities to provide road repairs and stormwater removal, which we have a lot of and we need a lot of. Wow. Because previously, this wasn't going to do anything to public safety budgets, right? That wasn't the original intention of this whole thing. What is this morphed into, Pete?
Well, I mean, boy, there's a lot to dig in here. So first and foremost, let's say Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, he proposed eliminating property taxes for homesteaded unit owners, or house owners, if you will. And that kind of went by the wayside. Now they pivoted, they changed it a little bit. But at the end of the day, the county, the school, the city in which you live, they are filling their coffers with a portion of the property taxes you're paying every year, 2% of the assessed value. That's basically the way it works. We don't have state income tax in Florida, and as a result, the way that you keep the engine running is you hit everybody with property tax. Governor DeSantis, instead of dealing with insurance, insurance is a big issue. Instead of dealing with that, they decided, no, let's go ahead and let's deal with the property tax issue. So we've said from the beginning, we've been talking about this for a year. If in fact you do this, what's going to happen is local politicians, some of them are crooked, some of them aren't. They're going to have to go up to Tallahassee, where the capital of Florida is. They're going to have to bend a knee and beg the legislature to give them money to be able to do stuff. Right now, they can basically flip the bird to Tallahassee because they got property tax coming in, and they're able to spend the money as they see fit. Although in Miami-Dade County last year, Daniel, if you remember, $400 million budget shortfall. Now, to hear the police come out and talk about how they are against this, I would sort of push back and say, listen, officers, we got something called the Big Beautiful Bill. If you take a look at the Big Beautiful Bill, $75 billion has been allocated towards ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement.
Big number.
Police in Florida, under Florida law, they're the ones who are basically enforcing the immigration policy set by the White House right now. So what I would say is, let's get rid of the police. Let ICE, they got $75 billion, let them handle it. Then we got no longer an issue. The police union, whatever it is. ICE, $75 billion, let them police the streets. They're already doing it now. They're jumping out with masks. They're from the back of a van. They're disappearing people. What the hell? Let's just push it all the way. We don't need to fund the police force. And I'm being
we could fund Miami PD with selling the downtown police department. I mean, I'm sure the Moss brothers would be happy to have them at the Mel Reese development.
There you go. Knock down the police headquarters in downtown Miami. There's no need to have a 4 or 5-story building and that expensive real estate. Ship them out to right around where Freedom Park is, where David Beckham, old man Beckham, and Lionel Messi are playing their soccer matches. You got a big park that's polluted. They've already taken all of their... They've already taken all the, the materials. They put it all in a big circle in the middle of the park. Just go ahead and build a police force in and around there. Maybe put the jail on top of that big hump in the middle of the park. There's all kinds of options. I don't think we have a problem. Let's get rid of property taxes. We don't need it. The police force, we got ICE. Everything is going to be great in South Florida because everybody wants to be in Miami, Daniel.
Everybody wants to be here. Little wrinkle in this whole thing to add another complication to this property tax elimination. Actually, the official name for it, and I pulled it up here. The official name for it is the wait for it, Save Florida Homeowners from Excessive Property Taxes. I thought interns' jobs up there in Tallahassee were to come up with like good act and bill names. You can't even turn this into an acronym. But I'm not the only person who has a problem with it. Tallahassee Circuit Judge, the day after, so the FSA, Florida Sheriff's Association, press release came out on Monday. Following day, Circuit Court Judge up in Tallahassee, David Frank, ruled that the ballot title reads more like a political slogan, and he told the AG up there in Tallahassee, you got to go back to the drawing board and you got 10 days. So at this point, I guess it's about 6 days to come up with new wording.
It's going to pass. It doesn't matter what the wording is. It's going to pass because people
don't want to
pay property taxes. Yeah, it's a shining object. But what will happen is after the fact, just like the Big Beautiful Bill, once we get into past the midterm elections, some of the stuff is going to start to kick in because it was staggered. We're all going to start to feel the pain. But right now, we are winning again. We are back. America is back. We are winning again. And let me tell you, it feels fantastic, especially when you're dropping $4 a gallon on gasoline. So this is what it feels like to win.
But you're saving money on gas. You're not driving. What are you spending that money on? What's a kilo of coffee costing over at Presidente, Pete?
Well, you know what? It was interesting, and I'll give you an example of Pilan, Cafe Pilan, which is the better quality of coffee, or at least the reputation is.
Ooh, you're really putting it out there, Pete.
It went from about $4 a brick, and I'm talking about coffee. I'm not talking about anything else, even though it's Miami. Went from $4 a brick. They took it to $9, Daniel. They took it to $9 because of, guess what? Tariffs on Brazilian coffee. Because of the tariffs, all of a sudden went to $9. But we just got it on sale for $3.99, so I feel like I'm getting a deal. Although I did anticipation of the market, I must have bought about 15 bricks of coffee before all the tariffs kicked in from that fantastic day, which was Liberation Day on April the 2nd of 2025.
So let me ask you, Pete. You're a renter. Are you voting for this?
No, I'm going to vote against it because it's kind of like the idealism. I don't think it's right. I don't want to pull away the power of the local politicians, and they're not all on the up and up. Some of them are corrupt. They're all taking kickbacks. Well, they're taking donations. They're doing what they're doing. But I want to have the local power making a decision. I don't want to have a bunch of people who basically are working 60 days a year up in Tallahassee deciding what has to happen, what doesn't have to happen. And I would set out a warning to everybody who is in support of this. Remember, the way the political winds are blowing, it could go the other direction. And if it goes the other direction, we might not be talking about banning books. We might not be talking about bathroom access. We might be talking about other stuff. So just kind of remember kind of how it plays out. But if it's up to me, we don't have state income tax. Go ahead, tax people based on the property. Landlords will pass it on to the renters. And now we know where the money's going and decisions are being made locally. Why are you going to trust somebody up in Tallahassee where they get frost? We don't get frost down here in Miami, Daniel. Last time it snowed in Miami was what, 1979? Why are we trusting these people up there who work 60 days, which is a session, 60 days a year? I don't understand it.
Yeah, I can't get behind it. Even being a homeowner, the math doesn't math for me. And you're having to rely on local administrations to balance budgets now with even less money than before. They were barely able to make ends meet before, and now you're turning the spigot.
At a time,
we're talking public hospitals. Jackson's funded with property tax dollars.
Broward Regional.
The way they wrote this legislation, guys, the way that this got through the House and the Florida Senate was that they're going to fund core services, and that is at best a nebulous term. What does that mean? Core services? It's just like whoever's going to blow me more, to be frank.
Listen, I've traveled the world. I've done a lot of things, and you can go to a gorgeous place. Let's call it Cape Town, South Africa. You go to Cape Town, South Africa. It is just stunning, much like Miami's stunning. But you know what happens in Cape Town? You park your car right in front of the place, and you have to walk immediately in so you don't get robbed. When you get to your home, you have to have a big fence and you have to have stuff around you. So when I was in Cape Town, I had a conversation with some of the people, and the difference in the disparity between those who had and those who hadn't was forcing people to go ahead and take their own actions. You know what they do in South Africa? They hire their own private security guards to protect them, even though there is a police force. The more we take away from people, the more we have to worry about things. We talked last week about 1990s when I got here to Miami. Robbery, crime, murder, all kinds of stuff. All that's gone by the wayside for the most part. Why has it? Because people have been prosperous. You start stripping away healthcare. You start killing them in terms of financially with gasoline prices, food prices. What do you think is going to sort of happen? So you might be living in a place like Coral Gables, which for a long time had a real serious problem, much like Miami Shores does, with home break-ins. You got people coming in, they're duct taping you, they're stealing everything. You're fearful of a variety of different things. When crime gets bad, everybody, I want you to think back about the situation economically. If people are making money, you're still going to have the criminals out there, but it's not going to be as extreme. If somebody has to come up with prescription money to pay for the medicine for their child or their significant other, you don't think they're going to do everything necessary possible in order to sort of solve the problem? So I'm just telling everybody, think big picture wise. I'm a renter. If, in fact, this passes, my landlord is going to save some money in there. Oh, no, it wouldn't be homesteaded. But let's say my landlord saves some money on his homestead. Do you think any of it's ever going to get passed on to me? No. But how do I get the money back? By having Jackson Hospital, by having Broward Regional Hospital, by having the police force, by being able to call 911 and get an ambulance rolling on here. Now, suddenly, what am I going to do? I'm going to have to call a private ambulance to come and do something? No, that's not necessarily the world I want to live in. But I've seen how it worked in places that are gorgeous, just like Miami's gorgeous, like Cape Town, South Africa, and it's not something I would sign up for.
You siding with the sheriffs on the Florida property taxes?
Yeah, I'm siding with the sheriffs. And I think anybody who basically lives in a community, it isn't just a trader. They're here for a period of time and then they're sort of pissing off and moving on to the next trade. I think they'd have to. But this thing is going to pass. It's going to pass because people are getting squeezed based on affordability. Inflation was supposed to come down to nothing. Now it's pushing close to 4%. We just had an unemployment data come out today. And what it says is we were supposed to gain 80,000 jobs. We lost 23,000, but yet unemployment rate went down. Why? Fewer people in the workforce. So if there are fewer people in the workforce and unemployment rate comes down, what do you think is going to happen to that HVAC? Hey, everybody, it's August. You're going to be calling somebody to fix that air conditioner right when some storm comes rolling through. You got fewer people in the workforce. How much more is it going to cost you? Let's throw in some of the tariffs from Liberation Day, which were ultimately Supreme Court rejected, but now new ones are being exercised. When you go to fix that air conditioner, how much is that going to cost you? What about if you have a problem with your roof? These are the things that are meat and potatoes that impact everybody's day-to-day life. And as a result of burning more cash on that stuff, Daniel, you can't go to Yardbird. That's why Yardbird is closed. I would argue,
you know why
to a certain
Yardbird is
degree.
closed? I was seeing on the socials, it got into that chicken and waffles that you so much adored. They were charging more than $50 for a plate of chicken and waffles.
They 100% were. They were always on the pricey side, but they were also on the South Beach side. It's not a place that I would go to frequently. It was almost like a celebration. Say you're celebrating something, Daniel. I don't know, 15 años. So kid turns 15 years old. You're going to go out and celebrate. You're probably not going to Yardbird, but it was one of those occasional places. And you had tourists who would come into town, and they were an institution. You know what's located right next to them is the Abbey Pub. Little place you can throw a couple back, talk some shit with people.
Just a couple.
It was fun. Yeah, just a couple. Yeah. Well, depending on what the prices are now, because of tariffs and everything else. So I guess where I'm going with this, everybody, we're all feeling the pressure. We're hearing horror stories about what people are having to do to survive. And when times get tough, people are going to survive, and that typically has repercussions. And I don't want the Miami of the 1990s. I do to a certain extent when Gianni Versace was first coming here, and we were hot. But why were we hot? Because we had been run into the ringer. We were the drags, and that's what created an opportunity for guys like Gianni Versace to come here and buy some property. That's what made it so edgy. That's why the Miami Vice TV show was here.
That's the word. All right.
Yeah, but Miami Vice TV show. Think about the Miami Vice TV show. That was based on the crime-ridden part of Miami. Right now, we're at the top of we're like the Cheshire Cat. And where we're going, somebody's going to take that Cheshire Cat. They're going to foreclose out the owner, throw that damn cat into the alley, and have a deal with the alley cats. And then you're going to see a very different Miami. I've seen it before. That's not the Miami I want. But as you restrict people in their financial ability, there's always an effect. It's a push-pull is what I would say. So vote no, I would tell you, but you vote however you want. But make sure you vote.
Gotta vote. And if you really want to get into the weeds of it, insurance is the problem. You can talk about rates, you can talk about taxes, you can talk about blue, you can talk about red, but it really boils down to this, guys. We have the highest, not only do we have the highest property insurance premiums in the country, we're 3x the national average. In Florida, it's about $8,000 a year. In Dade, it's $12,000. In Monroe County, I get it, they're an island change. They got a lot of hurricane risk and high flood insurance. It's $15,000 a year, guys. Number 2, by the way, is Louisiana at $5,000 a year. And Tallahassee wants municipalities to go and grovel up there like the insurance companies grovel in Tallahassee. And by the way, the groveling does really well by the insurance companies because a few years ago, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis made it more difficult to litigate insurance companies. So a hurricane comes, house gets damaged, insurance company denies your claim or denies a large part of it. You get an attorney, you go sue the insurance company, and they settle. And the only people really happy about this are the attorneys because they were making exorbitant fees. And the insurance companies went together with, they have a lot of money to lobby. They have a lot of money to release studies. And they would say, hey, 70% of all insurance litigation in the country happens here in Florida. And yes, there is fraud. There's a tremendous amount of it. But it is usurious for insurance premiums to be as high as they are in this state. The reason why that they are high isn't because of the litigation, guys. That's a farce. That it's not real. The reason why is because we got hurricanes, we got floods, we got every natural disaster, probably except for what? There's no earthquakes here, thank the Lord. We just have a lot of natural disasters.
We're building on limestone. We're building on limestone. Take a look at the University of Miami report having to do with 35 towers on the barrier island, Miami-Dade County, that are, forget the term, let's just say sinking, my term, not
sustenance, subsidience.
Sustenance.
I don't know.
They're sustenting quicker than they're supposed to. Basically, they're sinking faster than they're supposed to because we're building on limestone. We're having all kinds of impact. There is so much risk involved here, but it's a push-pull. It's kind of like doing that illicit substance if you're into it. You never know what's in it and how it's going to end up. That's what we're doing with a lot of our development. Why? Because it's always worked, but as times change, and things happen, it becomes riskier. So insurance companies are going ahead, they're applying the risk, but also too, they see an opportunity to take advantage of the
Of
greed.
course, I
Why?
see an opportunity.
Because
Look,
you got Ken Griffin here. You got Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook here. You have Larry Page of Google here. You have Alex Karp of Palantir. They're all here. Who are you going to get the money from? Take it from the rich people, all the FOMO, everybody rolling in. Where's the biggest town? Well, these people also got the cash. These are the ones you bang. And as a result, everybody else is sort of feeling it. It's the argument I would make. Yeah.
well, I think it's particularly interesting because the insurance thing here is so multifaceted and it's opaque. I don't think a lot of people really understand what happens here, and it took me to become a homeowner to recognize this. But you have Citizens. If you don't know what Citizens is actually our well, it's a socialist program, Peter. It's a socialism. It's bad. It's evil. In 2023, Peter, we had nearly 1.3 million policies on Citizens. They have depopulated that. Now, that is depopulated is an insurance term for getting policies off of your books. So there was this explosion in policies on the Citizens Insurance Program because nobody else would insure them. They're called the insurer of last resort. If you buy a house with a mortgage, you need to have insurance. And so to keep the entire housing market from freezing over, the state had to create Citizens Insurance so that people can get insured, so that people can get mortgages, so that people can finance their homes. Now, this was a really big thing, a really big ding in the state budget because, well, it's very expensive to run Citizens. And God forbid a hurricane hits the West Coast or South Florida somewhere, it's very expensive, and the taxpayers ultimately have to pay for that. So the state coffers, the state CFO, they're incentivized to depopulate Citizens as much as possible. But the problem is the bar is very low. There's a very little obstacles. It's like becoming a realtor in South Florida. I think you can become a licensed private insurer in like a weekend down here because the Citizens wants these policies off their books so badly. So since 2023 or 2022, I can't remember which year, but since they've been tracking this, we've accepted an additional 24 plus private insurers into the Florida market. That has resulted in Citizens kicking off 1 million policies off the books. And I'm one of those people that got depopulated. You know what happened? My insurance tripled, Pete. Tripled.
Depopulated. That's an interesting term. Did you smoke a cigarette afterwards after getting depopulated?
I smoked two cigarettes at the same time.
All right, listen, a couple points. Let's go back 20 years ago. 04, 05, 2004, 2005, you had 5 hurricanes hit basically Florida. We had all these hurricanes. Everybody was leaving the state. They were fleeing the cost of it as well as the damage. They're rebuilding, and the insurance companies were going, as they say in Tampa, tits up. As a result of that, Citizens had to step up in a big way, and they had to backstop the marketplace. Why? What did we talk about in story 1? Because we have no state income tax. Everything is funded by property taxes. Typically, when you are the insurer of last resort, and Louisiana has one, Daniel, they have one. Insurer of last resort means you got to be so cost prohibitive that private sector can move in. They can charge less, make their money, and still it's not as bad as Citizens. Take a look at Citizens. Citizens for a long time was cheaper than the private insurance company, and that's why a lot of people were going for private. There was a moment in time when that was actually occurring. So our economics don't necessarily make sense here. We talk about how we don't want socialism, but then we set up Citizens. Why do we have Citizens? Because we got to keep the real estate market moving, because that's what funds everything. And at the same point, let's get rid of homestead or property taxes for homesteaded properties. Something's not adding up. This is a situation where it feels like Tallahassee and Governor Ron DeSantis has basically gone on a bender to Vegas. You guys ever see the movie Hangover? Gone on a bender, and let's just rock and roll to the hilt. Let's take advantage of it, and we'll figure out what to do after the fact. By the way, he's a lame duck governor. He's on his way out. Why not go ahead and put in place all these things? Because you do not have to clean up after the fact.
No, it's his legacy, Peter. It's his legacy.
Well, I know exactly what the legacy is going to be, but one tidbit for everybody. According to First Service Residential, you're going to get $1.15 a square foot per month maintenance fee on a high rise for condos in Miami-Dade County. Take a look at Palm Beach and Broward County. You're looking at $1.02 a square foot per month. Roughly 22% of your maintenance fee, everybody, is going towards insurance. lower the insurance, and guess what? Your maintenance fee goes down. How would that work? That would be great. Take a look at your property taxes versus what you're paying on insurance. Chances are you're getting a lot more out of that property tax than you are from the insurance, is what I would tell people.
Buy, sell, hold. Insurance is the problem, Peter.
Pound the table, flip it over, punch somebody in the face, buy.
I'm a buy on that too. All right, we'll get away from the technical stuff. Let's start talking sexy. We've been talking about this certain little zip code. It used to be part of Miami Beach. It's not part of Miami Beach. They dredged it. It became an island. We're talking about Fisher Island, and I know, guys, you're like, oh, he's going to talk about the freaking fuel tanks again. I'm not going to talk entirely about the fuel tanks. Although I do want to call out Mr. Brian Bandel over at South Florida Business Journal. Great reporting. So, but before I get into the topic here, the Fisher Island Community Association, and so we are going to talk about the fuel terminal just for a minute, because I want to see Peter's O-face on this. They've amended their lawsuit, the Fisher Island Community Association, against HRP, which is the JV that purchased the fuel tanks from Transmontague, the $180 million fuel tanks eyesore that fuels the port's economy at a tune of $61 billion for Miami's GDP. Why did they amend it? Because they say, and I quote, HRP never seriously intended to develop the land, the FICA stated in the amended lawsuit. Instead, it devised a scheme to extract the property's highest value by leveraging the agreements it obtained from plaintiffs to inflate the property's worth and then flipping it to the most desperate buyer available, Miami-Dade County, for whom the fuel bunker is the sole source of fuel for the cruise and cargo ships at Port Miami. HRP sought to escape its obligations under those same agreements while pocketing a windfall at plaintiff's expenses. Wow, they are really unhappy about this thing. Peter, golf clap. Peter called it, folks. If you've been watching us for a little while.
It's exactly what it is. This is a hustle. You can see it coming a far way away. Miami-Dade County is in a great position. They have jammed up the owner of this property because they've announced eminent domain. As a result, this property is not marketable. You're not going to be able to sell it to anybody. You're going to drag it out through the system. County's sitting in the catbird seat. What I don't understand is why the politicians force certain people to step down, step aside. That's the part that doesn't make sense. But is this a play basically to have the county buy out the dirt? 100%. What happens? A group out of Chicago comes in, from what I've read, they then bring in some politically connected developers to go ahead and try to create this mirage. Yeah, try to create this mirage. We're going to put up condos there, get everybody in a tizzy, and pull, wait for it, a Miami Circle. Miami Circle, right there on the south bank of the Miami River. Condo tower is going to go up. They did some excavation. They found a Miami Circle.
Whoops.
Developer made $18 million to piss off, sell it to the state. And you know what the state did with it? They turned it into the most expensive dog park in all the land because they haven't done anything with the Miami Circle except cover it up and let the dogs run around and put out the plastic bags so people coming out of the 1,800 units in Icon Brickell with 0.5 dogs per unit go down there and pick up everything where the dogs are leaving their remains. So what I'm saying here is this is a hustle. We saw it coming. Do not follow the shiny object. Everybody's been out there like, oh, the port's going to shut down. Port's not going anywhere. The county's in a good position. Sit back and squeeze them is what I would tell them.
But that's not the rundown topic. That was a little asterisk. That was a little extra, bonus for us. I had to get off loyal viewers. I know. I had to tell you that you were right this whole time. But what we're talking about is there's a little township out in California. You know, that place that's supposed to detach from the rest of the union and go over there with Hawaii. But I'm talking about Atherton. You ever heard of Atherton, Peter?
No, never
Atherton, or the zip code 94027, which doesn't really roll off the tongue as well as 33109, which is Fisher Island zip code. But they have dethroned Fisher Island. They have the highest median sale prices in the union at nearly $10 million. And I know, honest caveat, Atherton's got like 7,000 residents. Fisher Island's like a little island, doesn't have a lot of transaction volume, as Peter said in the past. So this is a fairly small sample size. So when you see something go up 20% year over year and down 60% year over year in small sample sizes like that, it's not as significant. But what is significant is what's going on here, how we're advertising our market, and what's going on in California. Atherton's just a few miles north of San Jose and south of San Francisco. It's this really wealthy enclave. Think of it like our Fisher Island, but more akin maybe like our Coconut Grove, right? It's where all the financiers want to live. You want to be neighbors with Steph Curry and the venture capital guys on Sand Hill Road. And with everything that's going on in California with AI and taxes, right? We say no property taxes. Come to Florida. We got sunshine. Well, despite that, Peter, they got higher prices here. And people are willing to pay those taxes and their higher prices because that is being seen, at least from what I understand, as kind of the epicenter for all of this AI deal flow. You got the OpenAI IPO coming, you got the Anthropic IPO coming, you got the SpaceX IPO. I don't know how many bazillionaires were minted a few weeks ago when that IPO'd. And yeah, maybe they're getting a condo here. That'd be great. If you want a condo, give me or Peter a call. But they're also keeping a place over there in California. And I mean, with everything going on in the Fisher Island fuel terminals, let's be honest. Do you really want to get embroiled in this whole thing right now? Why don't you just go across to Miami Beach and you can deal with those crooked politicians?
First and foremost, Fisher Island is one of the worst condo markets, Tri-County, South Florida area, based on, we created a condo cliff index January 1st, 2025. We track it. Daniel, let me just give you some perspective in terms of Fisher Island. Most of it's old. It's vintage. It's at least 30 years old or older. This is old product.
Classy.
They're trying to put lipstick on a pig, on an old pig at that, if you will. I don't know if you ever eaten like me when I'm buying, well, it's a different story. Anyways,
yellow tags.
36 condos on the market, of which 21 are going to be vintage, at least 30 years old or older, about 58%. So 1 out of every 2 condos in Fisher Island is old. Old. Daniel, take a guess. How many properties are currently pending sale? Take a guess. 36 on the market, of which carve out 21 for vintage or older ones. They're typically cheaper. So how many pending sales do you think you got in Fisher Island right now?
1.
0. Nobody's buying in Fisher Island. They're not buying it. This is all part of a marketing hype. Blame it on the fuel stage terminals. Blame it on whatever. Daniel, let me give you some pricing on Fisher Island. What I'm telling you is anybody can buy. You do not need brains to buy. Although you got to buy right because you make your money on the buy, not on the sell. People are trying to unload. They can't get out because they overpaid. They came in 2021, 2022, 2023. They thought they could work from home. They didn't have to wear a mask. In Miami Beach, for them to torque on a police car. They came here. They bought. They paid. They queued up. Now they can't unload the properties. Daniel, the ask right now today for a condo in Fisher Island, $2,800 a month. You know what it was last month? $2,900. You know, $2,900. You know what it was the month before that? $3,000. You know what it was the month before that? $3,100. Dude, they went from $3,100 a month at the end of the winter buying season on April 29th. They're down to $2,700. Nobody's buying, so they're reducing the asking prices. Take a look at what's going on the vintage side. Started at $2,500. Now they're down to $2,300. They're reducing the price. Pending sales. Where are the pending sales coming in at? Looks like about 2,000. Last time there was pending sales was back in June. Back in June, about 2,000 on a vintage condo and about 2,300 on an overall condo. So what I'm telling you is nobody's buying there. And if nobody buys there, you're going to have to lower the price. So as low as Fisher Island is right now behind California, it's going lower.
So what are you saying? I got 10 million bucks, Peter. Where are you going?
I am probably picking up a bunch of vintage condos that I'm getting for $100,000 a door, putting them all together, and then looking to probably terminate it or sell to a developer sometime in the future. I'm not buying a one-off unit. I am going to collect. I'm going to assemble. I'm going to build a portfolio of something that kind of looks the same way. Probably the best example I could give you, there was a investor I was working with. This guy was building a portfolios of, today they'd be called Airbnb, but they were condo hotels. They were all penthouses. So if you wanted to rent a penthouse condo hotel in Miami Beach, this guy had them all. He was going around buying them. So what I would tell people, if you're looking to buy, assemble. There's some great prices out there. If you look at the older stuff, it tends to be 40% cheaper than the broader market. Now it's old, but make sure it's got a signed inspection report and there's a funding source to get everything fixed. That's where you want to be, in my opinion, if you're an investor looking for a return. If you're buying for posterity and not something to put on the mantle, then you could play kind of anywhere. But Fisher Island's not the place to play, everybody.
Maybe they should buy in Palm Island, like the gentleman we're going to talk about on the next rundown topic.
Well, Daniel, you like to talk about Coconut Grove, and there's a lot going on in Coconut Grove. That might be a place to kind of give it, give a look. You got Ugo Colombo, who's a fantastic developer.
Ugo.
He's putting up a project. You got David Martin. He's putting up a project called The Well. So there's some stuff, and that's a market that's at least backstop. That would be like buying. I don't mean gold in terms of it's shiny like gold, but in terms of stability. The Grove might be a place if, in fact, you don't want to build a collection of all this like dumpster diving type of stuff that I prefer. But if you want something posh, the Grove might actually be a good place
Peter,
for that.
Flow House. Hey, Peter, I know, and not to detract too much, but I know we were tracking Flow House and we were talking a lot about short-term rentals in the past weeks. What was the what was a price per door on that? Price per square foot? Do you remember when all those institutional buyers went into Flow House? Did they get good deals at least?
I want to say it was somewhere in the ballpark of 900 a foot. I'm going off memory here, everybody. Yeah, I want to say it was. No, they did not get good deals. They did not get good deals. No, they simply bought in. They thought they were because they were bundling them. Maybe you go to a fast food joint. Nobody can afford it now. By the way, shout out to The Economist, 40-year anniversary on the Big Mac Index. But so if you bundle the condos, you get a better price. But the price wasn't that great.
Most expensive Big Mac on the Big Mac Index, gentlemen, was Switzerland.
Switzerland.
I think it was Switzerland, and the cheapest was Taiwan, $2.99.
Sign me up. Get me a flight to Taiwan. Hopefully the Chinese don't invade when I'm there.
No, we would never let that happen. Buy, sell, hold. Bay Area eats Fisher Island's expensive lunch. I'm holding. I'm holding.
I'm buying. I like the trajectory of AI, even if I don't like the data centers, and I think they're going to be able to drive it much more than maybe Fisher Island, which at the end of the day is a carve out. Everybody, it's like a granny's quarters. You build a house and then you build a granny's quarters in the back. That's what Fisher Island is. The feds came in and they basically sliced through, hence the name government gut. It's the granny quarters. Don't burn your cash there. Burn it elsewhere. And no one else is buying. That's why these people are struggling right now, and they're having to reduce their asking prices.
You're a buy, I'm a hold. Peter, the beach is back. It's back. And I look, I'm not just excited because he responded to my Instagram direct message, or I think the kids call it, Josh was probably looking at me like, you say direct message, just called it DM. But Robert Ravani, I gotta say, I have some choice words about Robert Ravani, and they're good ones. I'm kind of a fanboy. And it's not just because of his cool haircut, because it's the coolest freaking haircut. But this is a guy, he ain't land banking. He doesn't have the 50 billions that Ken Billions have. He's just a deal maker. And in a market that moves so much, I just think it's interesting to see him and to see him be very successful. So, folks, if you don't know who Robert Ravani is, he's this guy who moved over from LA, I think back in 2020. And I don't know where his money comes from. He buys and then he inserts like a really high-end lease and then he sells it, and he does this in a matter of years. And he hasn't done this once, he hasn't done this twice, he's done this multiple times. And Peter and I have been talking about this. It's like, how does he do it? And as we were talking earlier on the podcast, I was trying to kind of think about it. Pete, I think it's because he's a cool guy in a relatively boring business. So he's not like the guy with the suspenders and the glasses with a little pocket protector. He's a commercial real estate guy, but he's also like in the cool hospitality world. That's how he can get Playboy as their anchor tenant at that Ravani building that he put over there on Michigan or on Washington on the beach. Most notably on this, that freestanding building, 200 South Point. I think is it part of the continuum? On 200 South Point, where Sibo Wine Bar was a few years back.
Yes. On the bottom of the Portofino?
No, it's a standalone building on the corner there. And okay. So he picked this thing up back in 2022 for just about $11 million, $11.5 million in 2022. He signs a restaurant called Catch, which is like this very hoity-toity high-end seafood place, to a 15-year lease. And then last January, so not even 3 years, he trades it for $28.2 million. And that's like one restaurant asset. And then he did it again. He did it with the Gecko space, which was at, it is that steakhouse that Bad Bunny is like the celebrity backer of. He did that with the Rosa Negra space. He did that Amara at Paraíso. So he can kind of sit on both sides of the cool and the technical part of real estate. And the reason why I brought him up today is because he made another freaking acquisition on Miami Beach. He bought the China Grill building for $30 million.
Which at one point, a connection to Playboy Latin America used to be based out of there.
No shit. There you go.
Yeah, they were based there.
Robert, I don't even know what to call him. Buddy, pal. You want to be my friend? I don't know. But maybe, hey, maybe we can have him on the show. Maybe he can host us on. So what he's doing now, and he announced that he was going to do this at the Ravani, which he rebranded the last office building that he bought, and he's renovating it to turn into that like experimental Class X office space, which is going to be like a cool office, not just Class A, but like Class Super Duper Triple A Awesome or Triple X. Miami Beach, the porn museum there, sponsored by OnlyFans, unsubstantiated. But he's going to be putting like paddle courts and cool things on top of these parking garages. So he's repurposing parking garage space as a hospitality, which is, I think, I don't know. It's brave. I don't have the right word for it. Eclectic.
Silly. You know what's always what's always interesting, Daniel, is there's two sides to it. One side is like this guy can see stuff that other people can't. Occasionally you get visionaries come in. Maybe Hugo Colombo was a visionary back in the day. He was going to UM. He then was buying up distressed condos. He puts up a project called the Bristol Tower. Some would say he was a visionary. Maybe you would say David Martin to a certain extent, even though his old man started the business, he took over and he was able to advance it. The Perez brothers will still, we don't know if they're actually doing anything different yet, but so sometimes takes a visionary. Carl Fisher was a visionary. He came in, he provided loans, he bought dirt, he dredged land, he was able to do stuff.
This guy kind of throws off Fisher vibes. He's the showman. He dresses eclectically. He's got the mohawk. He seems very confident in his moves, and the output of his moves seem to be quite lucrative for him.
Yeah, Addison Meisner and Boca Raton, he was a visionary. He was the one who came up with the Spanish Revival architecture, the Mediterranean style that we all see and love down here in South Florida. Thing is, with a lot of those people, they end up crapping out. Why did they crap out? Because they doubled down. Instead of taking the money off the table like George Merrick should have done with Coral Gables, he doubled down, ends up a postmaster, and then he gets investigated by the Securities and Exchange Commission. Yeah, take a look at Carl Fisher in that book Bubble in the Sun, which you haven't read. You need to check it out. There's a part where Carl Fisher is dumpster diving. Basically, he loses everything. Addison Meisner tits up, as they say in Tampa. So my message to Mr. Ravani is it's one thing to be a visionary. It's another thing to know that you don't necessarily know everything that a local does. If locals are selling to you and saying that you're brilliant and they love your haircut, that might not be because you're brilliant and they love your haircut. They might be hustling you. So, it's a balance. So my recommendation is keep taking chips off the table. Do not end up like Carl Fisher, George Merrick. Don't end up like Addison Meisner. Take chips off the table. As long as you can keep the money moving, it's all good. But if you're going long-term and you're holding, it's a push-pull scenario. Others would argue, well, listen, that makes all the sense in the world. You got to buy low and sell high. The problem is, have we unwound enough? And that is the part that I don't think anybody really knows. Now, when you're comparing it to California, which is your hometown, that's fine.
His hometown.
His hometown. But when you bring that school of thought here, just understand there's certain nuances. And the perfect example I would give everybody is take a look at a building called the Four Seasons on Brickell Avenue. A German group came in and they put that up. They were putting up around the country. This is 20-something years ago. They go and they launch sales. Nobody's buying. Why? Because the balconies sucked. They didn't understand the local balconies, but the architects who were putting it together, they thought everybody was going to love it. So there are local nuances. That's why experts like Daniel can kind of spell it out for you what's going to go on. So, Mr. Ravani, I love your haircut. I love the fact you landed Playboy. You're bringing them in. I love the Class X. but don't get too confident in yourself because this market will teach you lessons. Like a developer told me, Brazilian, it's not about how much you make, it's about how much you leave with. And do not lose sight of that because we got a 100-year history of developers coming in with a brand new idea and basically going tits up, as they say in Tampa.
Tits up? Tits up? Do they say that in Tampa?
Oh, they say it in Tampa.
How do you say that in Spanish?
No entiendo.
All right. And this wasn't just about to be, this wasn't supposed to be all about Ravani. This is a lot of a conversation that Peter and I talk about a lot concerning the beach, right? Because if you've been here for any number of, even probably like a decade or so, you probably remember the beach. You probably even had dinner with a family member on Lincoln Road when Lincoln Road was cool. Right? Lincoln Road went to be sort of seedy and dangerous in the 80s and 90s to really cool in the early aughts to kind of an afterthought when Wynwood and the Design District and Brickell really started to come online because it was far. Unless you lived on the beach, you didn't go to the beach anymore. And now I think it's taking guys like Ravani. Commerce is there for another reason. I think Commerce is just there to get a really good deal from Terra Nova on Lincoln Road. That's a whole other topic. But I think it takes a guy like Ravani to come in here from the outside and look at the beach for what it is. It's sand adjacent. What do we sell here, guys? We sell sunshine. And yeah, there might be some sunshine in Wynwood, but at the end of the day, it's just America's most expensive parking lot with wall murals. It's freaking graffiti. And will that change eventually? Sure. But Ravani got here. He had Wynwood Jungles, by the way, which was another thing he made a ton of money off of. And he took all that and he capitalized these acquisitions on the beach because ultimately the beach has what Miami offers foundationally. We have the beach. It's in the name.
It's in the name. It's been around for 100 years ago, but there's high and low tides. Like old man Warren Buffett says, you don't know who's swimming naked till the tide goes out.
The beach is so back. Buy, sell, hold, Pete.
I would be a hold. Long term, I think it is back, but at this point, I would be a hold. So I'm going to be on a hold. And I wish you luck, Mr. Ravani. I wish you luck. Just don't get too cocky. Miami has a way of teaching people lessons.
I'm going to hold with you, but I'm rooting for him, and not just because he responded to my DM, but also because he responded to my DM. And if I DM'd you and you haven't written me back, all you other developers out there, don't be scared to come on the show. Come on, we've been doing this for 63 episodes, and Peter hasn't made a single person cry that I know.
We're nice. We're like little kitty cats.
Meow. Declawed kitty cats. All right, Pete. Edgewater is too tempting to ignore. For all of you watching from out of Miami, Edgewater is a neighborhood just north of downtown, east of Wynwood, south of the 195, and it's on the water's edge. You know what? I'm going to bring it up on the map for the gang so everybody can see. Let's see what we got here. Let's go over to Edgewater. So we're going to fly over to downtown, and here it is. And you see all of these buildings, all this development going on right here on the water's edge. You got Paramount, you got Aria Reserve, you got everybody's been here. Vlad's been in here with the Missoni. You got Perez came in here with Paraiso and Icon. Everybody wants to be building here because ultimately it's kind of like the last bastion of waterfront without it being so ridiculously expensive. I think everybody under construction here didn't spend $200 or $300 million for their waterfront dev site. That being said, there are pre-construction projects here. Talking about you, David Martin Villa Miami, major food group branded villa, going for $2,000 a square foot in Edgewater, which may be a little high. But it's interesting because it sits at this inflection point of not on the beach, outside of Brickell, not in the most expensive parking lot in America, Wynwood, and you got views, and a whole lot of traffic. The problem here is, and there is a problem, is one, there's a ton of flooding in here. Yeah, you don't have to take my word for it. Just go walk there. By the way, guys, be careful next week. August 11th to August 14th is the King Tide. So if you want to see what it looks like, it's been raining a lot in the afternoon, folks. Drive or don't drive, because it might get really hairy in there around here during this time. You know, if you're a buyer, if you're interested in it, this is something that you can't ignore. It does flood in here. The city of Miami, I think, did they move forward with that Edgewater resiliency plan that they were going to make developers put up $35K a door for every new unit that they were building into like the seawall and seawater pump fund? Did that wind up going through?
I don't know if it went through, but even if it did, it's not going to have any kind of effect probably for years to come. So,
well, somebody's going to be lining their pockets, surely.
well, yeah, I didn't say that people's net worth wouldn't go up. I'm just talking about flooding.
But they're buying in high ground. So this is Edgewater, folks, and this is the highest density of new building in town. I named some of them, but I'll name the rest of them. Villa Miami, Addition made the list. Haven't heard a peep out of them. Two Roads Development, that's Biscayne 21. We talked about them quite a bit in the beginning of the year. Haven't really heard a peep out of either camp for some time, but we can talk about that in another week. The Cove Residences, Lily Miami, which Vladislav Dorin, who built Masoni, Una just came online. He did 830 Brickell, which is the most expensive office building in Miami. I think they just signed a Peter Thiel signed a 250 or $230 a square foot lease. Big money. And so he's doubled down in Edgewater. He's building Lily. Aria Reserve Sky Club, HQ Residences, never heard of that, and L Residences by Vertical Development. So there's a lot more being built here, except there's no rail access, and there's
All right. Just give everybody a little bit of history about this particular area. So this area, I want you to think about Greater Downtown Miami. Think about that area right in there by what would ultimately become Maurice Ferre Park, where you got the museums, Perez Art Museum and the Philip Ross Science Museum. So back in the day, a lot of the retail went up just on what would be the other side of the MacArthur Causeway. And the Causeway opened like 1920 or so. Shout out to Casey Paquette, who does Miami History podcast as well as his Substack. So about 1920, the Causeway opens, taking us over to Miami Beach. But the retail center ends up going just north of the Causeway. Why? Because you had single family, you had office, you had other stuff going up in the heart of it. And if you look at our Performing Arts Center, they saved the ornamental entrance to the Sears Roebuck. So if you guys take a look at the Adrian Arsh Performing Arts Center, you're going to see the old historical part. Why? Because that was a retail area. That's when they brought up the Omni Mall, which nobody's probably ever been into. I was fortunate enough I was able to go into it, or unfortunate enough to go into it. But that area really got put on the map by a guy called Tibor Hollow, late 70s, early 80s. He's the one who put up the towers right on the bay. It was a no-go zone, everybody. This is where the hookers were. This is where the NFL football player
some
for the
people
Atlanta
would want to
Falcons.
go to that zone.
The NFL football player, he was a tackle, played tackle, offensive lineman. He gets busted the night before the Super Bowl in Miami in a John ring. This was a shit part of town. The way to kind of look at the Edgewater area is think of it like a law firm. The male staff, the admin assistants are living in Edgewater. As you move up in the firm, you move to the that area between the MacArthur Causeway and the Miami River. And once you've arrived and you're the managing partner, you're all the way down in South Brickell, around where Vlad has his Una project. That's just kind of the way it's gone. Now, what's happened over the course of time is the Mellows. The Mellows are the ones who pretty much, I would argue, put the Edgewater on the map. Edgewater wasn't even a name until after we were coming out of the Great Recession. For instance, there's a project over there right on 22nd in Biscayne. It's called the Wynwood Lofts. It's nowhere close to Wynwood because nobody really had an idea of what that area was. Mello started building some projects. They came up here in 2000 or so after in and around the time of the Argentinian peso devaluation, when Argentina went into the shitter. They came here. They start building. Nobody wanted to touch this area. Daniel, I don't know if you know it. There was going to be a Chinatown over here. There was an investor out of There was an investor. Remember, I told you a lot of people from Hong Kong came over this way when the Brits handed back Hong Kong to mainland China. A lot of them came here. There was plans for a Chinatown that was supposed to go up. That's now where the Mellows are going to put up a project about 19th in
No
Biscayne to
kidding.
be on the east side. Yeah, that was going to be a Chinatown.
Isn't that where Ken Billions wanted to put the William, Jen, and Brian's house? There behind the Arby's?
No, I think that was behind the Checkers.
The Checkers, Arby's, Checkers, same.
Yeah, so fast forward. I'm getting where I'm going. So fast forward to the buildup of 2002 to 2011. You had towers there. You had pylons in the ground, rebar exposed, and they never got built. There was a project that was supposed to go up called ICE. Never got built. ICE, I don't know if it meant to,
that eventually became Paraiso, right?
The Paraiso project, yeah. The problem is all the streets are east-west, and the money comes on an east-west view. But because you have a street going through it, you can't do it. So they had to reconfigure some of these streets. That's been the biggest drawback. And the fact that it floods. Hurricane Irma came through in like 2017, 2018. I was in a project on 22nd in Biscayne. Water was up to my kneecaps, everybody. I'm coming in about 5'11" or 6'1" with shoes on, if you will, was what I like to say. I had water to my kneecaps. Many projects over there are building so the entrance is on the second floor. Because of why? Because you're on the edge of the water and it floods. So why are they going in this area? Because it is an area with a lot of available land. You got a lot of ducks.
Well,
you got
front row view to the water. I mean, that's ultimately what it is. I mean, listen, we can say whatever we want. You do go up to the 40th floor in these buildings, and the views are spectacular.
Absolutely spectacular.
That's my salesy side coming out. There are a lot of other things in the rubric that you have to look at when you're buying these units, but can't say anything bad about the views. The views are quite incredible. It's the problem is that when you go downstairs, and yes,
and that's the point. You got walkability on Brickell, but no view, and you have view and Edgewater, but
there's no
really
walkability. I mean, drive. Yes, well, you get infill development and all here, and you know you have to credit Miami 21 zoning that they passed about 15 years ago for all of this, right? And I'm sure Mello and his family really were proponents to get this thing forward. I think Mello came here, like early 2000s?
2001 was the peso dollar devaluation. Yeah, January 2001.
And then Miami 21 got passed in 2010, 2011?
Yeah, by the time it was ultimately put in place, because it was originally under Manny Diaz, who was mayor, and I think I got put in place after he was already out of office. And I'm talking about Manny Diaz, the real estate attorney who was mayor, not the son who's a football coach at Duke.
So part of Miami 21, if I understand it, is that they could redevelop these single-family homes, assemble them, and just right? And
trees go to the moon.
And you see all of this. These were all single-family homes. I think one of these wasn't one of these like a seminary, like a boarding house for priests. Didn't the Jesuits own one of these?
Yeah, that was the one that Vlad took down. We're right next to where he's got the Masoni. So it's actually still standing.
That's the Lilly project that he's putting up. Lilli.
Yep. So if you go right across from where villas will go up, Villa Miami will go up, across that little cutout, right directly on the water, you got a project behind it called Crimson. You got another one called Bay House. Yep, right. That's the monastery.
Got it. Well, I mean, that's Edgewater. I think paying $2,000 a foot to be in Edgewater is a lot. Now, are there projects going up that are not $2,000 a foot? Yes, there are projects going up that are not $2,000 a foot. If you want to know what they are, you can ask Peter and I. We'd be happy to look into it. But I think for $2,000 a foot, there's a lot more that Miami has to offer. Hot take.
And I'm with you, Daniel. I'm in your camp.
All right, so Edgewater is too tempting to ignore. I wouldn't ignore it. It's not too tempting to ignore. I'm a sell.
Now, if I look at from a discount buyer perspective, I would say it'd be an area that'd be very interesting. It's not.
But are the discounts? Are we seeing the discounts yet? I'm not seeing the transactions on the discounts yet. If the discounts were indeed transacting, if we were indeed transacting at 40% off of ask, like you have oracled, then yeah, buy the shit out of this. But the sellers are still living in la la land.
Yeah, yeah, and they might have a diversion because our boys over at Club 11 Cabaret, don't call it a strip joint. They got all their units coming online. They're trying to peddle that product, even though some of the square footage might be a little bit not exactly what people thought they were getting. So you're going to have a lot of distractions. But I think Edgewater, if the prices come down to an adequate value, then this is an area you can play in. But understand you're getting a view, and you do not have walkability because you might get shivved. And or if you're driving, you're probably stuck in traffic. So yeah, I would have to
don't drive through that puddle.
Well.
Don't attempt to drive through that puddle unless you're Rico and you got his big Jeep.
And make sure you bring some bread so you can throw it out to all the ducks. There's ducks everywhere in Edgewater.
Oh, speaking of Ravani, he also traded at the Amara.
There we go.
Next to the really expensive doll park in Paraiso.
That was supposed to be a park. Instead, they put up a luxury restaurant there with charging $25 for a drink. And you got, that's a completely different story. But, yeah.
All right, so where are you sitting on this? You hold, you sell, you buy? Where you at?
I'm going to be a hold on. I'm a hold on this.
All right, I'm a hold too.
I
just want to be with you on this.
Yeah,
we agreed on practically everything
listen,
today.
If you're a seller in that area, I would tell you refinance. Get yourself a loan to get you through kind of what's coming.
What do you mean refinance? Anybody who bought here pre-construction is financed at like 2.5%.
Yeah, but people might need to tap into some additional cash because they thought when they were buying in 21, 22, 23 that prices were going to be going up, and I'm not sure that they've gone up as much. And granted, we got a new Federal Reserve Chairman Kevin Warr. She's supposed to cut interest rates, but everything's kind of pointing in the other direction. So. It might be time to buckle up and hold on. And if you need yourself some cash, you might want to look at refinancing because,
what
there's some
lender is going to let you pull money out of a condo right
now? I think there's probably private money that would make it available. Why? Probably under a loan-to-own type of scenario from a lender perspective, private money.
You got to really need that cash, Peter.
Well, some of these, the age of the buildings, there are vintage condos in the Edgewater area. Many of them gotten taken down and ultimately terminated and replaced. But it's, remember everybody, real estate takes 3 times as long and costs twice as much. So if you're on the brink and you're trying to get from this point, from, this side to the other side, it might take longer than you sort of think. And, who's to say where interest rates are going? I don't know. I guarantee there's somebody out there listening to me saying, you know what? Maybe I need to reconsider this because I thought I was going to sell in the summer. Because, Daniel, we had the World Cup. We had 450,000 people fill Hard Rock Stadium. We had a 6-week tournament. We had 7 matches. You know what happened to pending sales in South Florida? They went down.
No.
They went down. We were told that the World Cup was going to drive sales, and people were hoping they might be able to exit. Didn't happen. Maybe 2 years from now, developer will be able to claim somebody came in for the World Cup purchase that, but Daniel, the point I'm making is affordability is a real issue, and if people are struggling right now, especially in Edgewater, because they follow this shiny object, they might be trying to figure out how the hell do I get out of this because stuff isn't trading, and if it does trade, it's not trading at the price that they want. So they might need to get from here to there, some sort of bridge, and that's the reason I mentioned the refinance. And I know there's somebody out there listening who's going to say like, maybe he's right.
All right, you're a hold. I changed it because I'm an adult. I hold with you, Peter. That's episode number 63. I got a baby shower tomorrow. Congratulations to my wife. And see you guys next Friday. Thanks so much for coming. Love y'all. Love you, Pete. We're going to have such a good show for you coming up next quarter. We're going to get guests. We might even get Roberto Ravani. He's not going to let me call him that, but I'm going to call him that anyway. And ciao.